If what you call a proper human diet is scientifically sound, then why is it not part of the mainstream advice? I mean, are you a conspiracy theorist?
So I think that over the last few years, most intelligent people around the world, at least who live in modern society, have seen evidence that many mainstream concepts and paradigms are not strictly based on scientific findings. As more and more people turn away from the mainstream narrative and say, yeah, that didn't work for me, that didn't work for my family, doesn't look like it's working for society, let's look for a new way, AKA an old way. Let's go back to the old way and try that because that seems to have worked for millions of years. And in the last 50 or 60 years, when the mainstream narrative has been the narrative, we've all gotten fatter and sicker and weaker and more anxious. Maybe that's not the right way.
You said let's go back to the old way. Didn't our ancestors eat plants though? So shouldn't we be eating some plants as well?
Sure. And in the same situation that they would eat plants, we should eat plants. So the anthropology, the archaeology, the paleoanthropology are quite clear on this. Only in modern nutrition circles is this debated, but in people who study the diets of our ancestors more than 15,000 years ago, it is inarguable that they ate as much meat as they could get their hands on, whether that meat ran on the ground or whether it swam in water. They ate as much meat as they could get their hands on. There was one situation where they would eat plants, and that is when they couldn't find meat. So we should mimic that. We should eat as much meat as we can, as often as we can. And if there is no meat and we're in danger of starvation, then we should eat any plant that we can get our hands on that won't acutely poison us. I mean, there's so much evidence of this in the anthropological literature that anthropologists just giggle when they hear a modern nutritionist say, oh, plant forward, plant based, plant centric. They're like, yeah, there's literally no evidence to support that whatsoever.
I've heard though that there are key nutrients in plants that we just won't find in animal nutrition. What do you say about that?
Well, I used to believe this, Lee. I used to literally believe, and I used to say to my patients, there's magic in plants. I would say that. Again, being that common sense country boy, I'm like, if I'm going to say something, I really should know that what I'm saying is correct. So I'm going to research this. I start looking like, okay, well, what vitamins, what minerals, what amino acids, what fatty acids are found in plants that you can't get from meat, that you can't get from eggs or seafood? And so I started looking, and lo and behold, what I found is that meat always has more vitamins and minerals than plants. Meat definitely has more amino acids and fatty acids than plants. What you're seeing increasingly now is the plant-based movement. They want to spend all their time talking about polyphenols and phytonutrients. And it's like, okay, which ones? What are you talking about? Okay. Because there's a list of amino acids that are essential to human health. There's a list of fatty acids that are essential to human health. There's a list of vitamins and minerals that are essential, meaning that if we don't get them in our diet, we will get sick, we will suffer, and eventually die. This has been known since the 1920s and 1930s. So are these polyphenols, are they essential? Well, no, they're not. What about all the phytonutrients? What about all of the antioxidants, these things? And they'll say, oh, sulforaphane, that stresses your body. Well, wait a minute. I thought the job of food was to nourish the body, not stress the body. I thought that's what the job of nutrition was. If you want to stress your body, then you exercise. Or you try to learn a new skill to stress your brain, stress your body. You don't stress your body with food. Food is for nourishment. So I would love it if one of our plant-based colleagues would reach out to me and say, okay, Dr. Berry, here's the list of essential polyphenols and the list of essential phytonutrients that you can only get from plants, because I can't find the list. And I've reached out to Michael Greger, Paul Bernard on Twitter, and many, many other people. I'm still waiting for the answer.
But I've heard that if you constantly eat to satiety animal fats and proteins, the protein in particular, that's going to lead to kidney damage.
Yeah, you still hear this a lot, although more and more nephrologists are moving away from this. I had a patient come back from the nephrologist, and they had said they told me I need to stop eating meat and eat a plant-based diet because all the protein in the meat is bad for my kidneys. Now, I thought about that. I'm like, well, kidneys are made of protein. How does that harm the kidneys? Where is this coming from? There's no research that supports that because you have to eat something, right? And so if this person stops eating meat because it's got too much protein, it's bad for their kidneys, they have to replace that with something. And they're going to replace that with something that's high in carbohydrates because you only have so many options. They're also mortified of eating saturated fat. So that basically they're going to be eating a low protein, low fat, high carb diet. And when you actually look at the renal research, the thing that destroys kidney function faster than anything else is hyperinsulinemia, prediabetes, and type 2 diabetes. That's what destroys kidney function. And the diet that these kidney patients are being told to eat actually worsens their glucose metabolism and their insulin metabolism, thereby directly harming their kidney function.
So at the moment, what I've got in my head is that a lot of people now are cooking nothing but meat, and often at high temperatures. Are you not concerned about the heterocyclic amines that are produced during the cooking process? Is that something we should be concerned about?
Well, I'm a little bit concerned about heterocyclic amines in any food that we cook at high temperature. I'm not an advocate of eating your meat well done. I never have been. I think the more you cook any food past a certain point, you actually start to degrade the nutrition in the food, and you start to produce these heterocyclic amines that potentially increase the risk of something bad being caused by the food in your diet. So any food you cook, if you overcook it, if you brown it, you're going to be producing these things. It's not just meat. If you toast your bread, you're producing these things. If you brown any plant, if you grill any plant, you're producing these things. Keep in mind that human beings, and this is a principle I'll keep falling back to over and over again, anything that a species has been doing for a long damn time has withstood the test of time. Evolution is the ultimate controlled experiment for every species. And so the fact that cows have been eating grass for millions and millions of years, that means that that's a million-year-long controlled experiment. And I guarantee you cows tried to eat meat. They tried to eat other things, and it didn't work for them. They need to eat grass. In the same respect, humans, who are a specific species, we have experimented with everything. And we now know that meat and eggs and seafood are our ancestral foods. We know that we've tried every other diet on the planet. This is the diet that gives us our best health. Now, humans started cooking food about 1 million years ago. And there's lots of evidence that that helped us become the apex species that we are today. It unlocked nutrition in the food. So 50,000 years ago, how did we cook meat? Did we sous vide it? No. How did we know? Did we wrap it in aluminum foil and bake it lightly? No. We stabbed it on a stick and we held it over an open fire. Now, if anybody watching has tried to do that, you're going to get char on the meat. There is no way to avoid that. I've tried this many times. There is no way to cook meat over an open fire, which was the only cooking method for 1 million years, without getting char on it. And so, again, this experiment has been done. We don't need Tufts University to run a trial with grilled meat. That experiment's been done for 1 million years. We would not be the apex species we are today if grilling your meat and getting a little char on it was super unhealthy. That wouldn't work. Does that make sense?
It does. And actually, you've got me thinking about our ancestors now. Why do you think that we have not found a picture of fruits and vegetables on a cave, but we see lots of, ruminant animals? Why is that? I would love to know. I would love to get to the bottom of this.
It's very fascinating that there's not a single cave painting of somebody tending their garden. The hunting of animals and the shepherding of animals was so very important that that's what they decided to literally in some cases crawl hundreds of yards back up into a very tiny cave, take an artificial light source, so in many cases they took their children with them. We're not sure why. And they would paint these scenes on cave walls of wild animals they were hunting or domesticated animals that they were shepherding. But never did not a single painting of sheaves of wheat or oats or barley or any of that. None of it. Why? I think that our ancestors knew intuitively. They just knew meat is food. Meat is a magical food. Meat is, and I'm sure they thought it was given to them by the creator, whoever their creator was at the time. Everything was wrapped up in either the hunting of meat or the shepherding of meat. Every part of their belief system centered on that. And I think that humans, being the symbolic animals that we are, not only symbolic, but also cultural, we teach our offspring through first spoken language and then through recorded language. We teach this is important. That's the things we talk about around the campfire in the evening before there was the written word. Then when we started making images, painting, what was the thing we painted? It was animals that we were going to eat. That was the thing we painted. I think that speaks volumes. But of course, many people don't want to see it that way.
You kind of got me thinking there. Matt, you said about a creator. Well, maybe there was a vegetable deity and they didn't want to inaccurately depict this vegetable on the walls. I don't know what you think about that.
Perhaps. But I think that there's not a single example. This is another great thing to think about. There's not a single example in recorded human history of a plant-based society where we ate nothing but plants. It's not even hinted at. It's not like, well, maybe we've misinterpreted this. No, it's not even close. Every single human settlement that's ever been looked at, there are mounds and mounds of animal bones, or mounds and mounds of fish bones, mounds and mounds of shellfish shells. And some of these piles of bones and shells are so tall that initially the researchers who uncovered them thought they were some kind of religious expression.
That is very interesting. I mean, I'll show you this. This is what I sort of created a little while back. I've torched that onto some wood there. You've got a wolf there. And then this deer there, I call that one venison. That's
yes.
The name there. Even today, I managed to draw this cow. But when I attempted to draw some fruit, I just couldn't do it. It was almost impossible. Maybe back then and even now, we haven't got it down to draw circles and things like that. I don't know.
Very nice artwork. I love it.
I heard that variety is the spice of life. What do you say about that?
I think that's a great marketing term for people who are trying to sell things that are not ancestrally appropriate. Variety is the spice of life, eat the rainbow, all things in moderation. These are great marketing terms, but I don't think they're great nutrition advice. Mainstream nutrition gurus would disagree with me. They would say, no, I give that advice all the time. And my question always is, well, what science do you base that on? All things in moderation, eat the rainbow, variety is the spice of life. Where is the research for that? And always crickets chirping is the only reply I get, because these are marketing terms. Just like Dr. Kellogg's came up with the phrase, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. He came up with that to sell cereal. And now you'll hear registered dietitians and board certified doctors literally spouting ad copy from John Harvey Kellogg's from the 1930s and 40s. It's a literal ad jingle, but registered dietitians will say this out loud with all seriousness, and people will believe it. Like, okay, I've got to, as soon as I wake up, I have to eat some rolled oats or something, because breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And one thing that Kellogg's was an excellent marketer. Having researched John Harvey and his brother very deeply, I'm very impressed with their marketing acumen, but very disappointed with their nutritional and medical beliefs, some of which are quite frightening. But just think about it. If I, as a doctor, were repeating some marketing jingle from General Motors back in the 1950s, people would be like, what the hell's wrong with you? What does that have to do with human nutrition? Well, nothing. It has nothing to do with human nutrition. Just like eat the rainbow, all things in moderation. These are marketing jingles. These are not maxims of actual nutrition research.
Why do I have such a hard time on Google when I'm doing my research and I'm looking through all these studies? Why is it that they're all pointing in the direction of plant based? And why, when I do my research, do I find that apparently, according to these studies and the outcomes, when we include lots of red meat in our diet, levels of salt and eggs with the yolk, why is that apparently so dangerous if we're supposed to eat that way?
Well, my opinion is that advocates of a low carb diet, a ketogenic diet, a ketovore diet, and carnivore diets, we don't have nearly as many lobbyists as the multinational billion-dollar big food corporations. We don't have lobbyists that lobby Google. We don't have people that can support the ad budgets of Google and these other huge companies. We're just doctors and dietitians and people like you who are saying, "Man, I tried this and this really worked for me." Then doctors like me say, "Well, I've tried this in thousands of patients and it works." And then dietitians in the same boat, but we don't have lobbyists. We don't have marketing agencies. We don't have public relations firms that we can retain and pay them hundreds of thousands of dollars to run marketing campaigns. We don't have that. We're just doctors and dietitians and regular folks saying, "Hey, this way of eating reversed my chronic disease. This way of eating gave me the best health I've ever had in my life. I feel better now at 56 than I did at 36." Word of mouth is very powerful, but when it comes to corporations like Google that run on billions of dollars, like literally Google, they won't even cross the street for $1 million, right? That's chump change. That's a rounding error for them. But they will listen to and heed the words of billion-dollar corporations, both big food and big pharma and big ag, big medicine. They will listen to them. And when people really dig into this rabbit hole, what they find is invariably that big food, big pharma, big ag, and big medical, they all make their highest profit margin by recommending a diet of ultra processed grains and beans, added sugar, vegetable seed oils. You can make anything out of those ingredients and you can market it and you can make 1,000% profit markup on it. It's shelf stable. It can sit on the shelf for 6 months at the store after it's been on a cargo ship, come from China, sit in the warehouse in China for 6 months. You can sell that as fresh in a modern supermarket. That's the way of eating that the big corporations make the highest percentage markup. And it doesn't kill anyone quickly, right? If they were putting strychnine in the food and people would eat one serving and drop dead, the attorneys would have a field day with that, right? They'd be sued out of existence. But this slow poison food, this poverty food, this slave diet, they can make billions. And it takes 20 or 30 years to have the chronic disease effect on the people that eat it daily. Therefore, they're protected from civil and criminal lawsuits because who's going to argue in court? I ate this crap for 20 years and now I have type 2 diabetes and fatty liver and severe obesity. The average jury of your peers is going to go, "Dude, if you thought it was bad for you, why'd you eat it for 20 years? Well, because they said that I should eat all things in moderation. And they said breakfast is all the jingles, right?" And it's like, yeah, but that's not evidence. You can't use that in court. And so all of these big corporations, they all promote the same diet. They're the ones who have multi-million-dollar advertising budgets. So guess who Google's going to listen to? It's not you and me.
So, say I'm convinced and I'm going to go carnivore. I'm going to transition slowly and I'm now going to eat exclusively animal fats and proteins. Won't those cravings be unbearable?
Many people are sugar addicts. And so, yeah, if you cut out all the sources of sugar from your diet and you are in fact a sugar addict, you're going to have to go through a period of withdrawal. A lot of people used to call this the keto flu back before we really knew what was going on. And when they would cut out all the carbs and go very low carb keto or carnivore, they would feel miserable for anywhere from 3 to 14 days, just headaches, fatigue, nausea, irritable, leg cramps. They're like, what is going on with me? Maybe I need to add wheat back into my diet because I feel so terrible. No, this is the withdrawal process. Some people become just chained to the sugar, whereas other people seemingly can take it or leave it. But that's the normal distribution curve in human physiology. It doesn't mean sugar addiction doesn't exist. It just means that it attacks some people much more than other people. And so for anybody who said, I tried to go carnivore, but I felt so terrible, I had to go back to eating my standard diet. That was addiction. That was withdrawal. That's what that was. If you can just stick with your proper human diet, whether that's keto, ketovore, or carnivore, if you can stick with it for 14 to 21 days, I promise you on the other side of those withdrawal symptoms is the good health that you've been looking for and indeed perhaps never dreamed that you could have again.
Ken, what is your absolute dream carnivore meal? If you can customize your meal from cut of meat, potential sides, pan of choice, cooking fats, type of salt, fluid, everything, what would it be?
Yeah, very, very fatty ribeye with none of the fat trimmed off, grilled to perfection. I love grilled salmon as well. Let's do some salmon. Let's do some scrambled eggs, scrambled in butter. And what else can we have? And then just repeat with seconds waiting if I don't get enough with the first serving. I'm a very simple guy. Sometimes I'll just eat two pounds of ground beef. And that makes me just as happy as the most expensive steak at the supermarket. As long as I get fatty red meat, I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty easy to please.
Maybe you could just give us a stab at your best Southern accent.
I don't have an accent. I don't know why people keep saying that. Shoot me a message when this comes out and I'll share it around.